Good morning, welcome. Let us start the last day of a very intensive Congress where we have been listening to conversations, experiences, listening to lectures, addresses, but we still have business to do. So after last night's celebration, we're back in business. And our previous session is inclusion, commitment, participation, which will be presented by Dr. Miquel Martinez, co-director of the Scientific Committee, who holds a doctorate in education sciences, a professor of education, and part of the working party in values and moral development at the University of Barcelona. Dr. Miquel Martinez, who will chair this particular conversation.
Bon dia a tothom.
Well, good morning. This is the last day of this Congress. Thanks ever so much for all of you who have been punctual this morning. We shall kick off with a session, the purpose of which is to present the 4 experiences which, in our view, should be considered as references, as lighthouses, as beacons, as models, if you like, or best practices concerning the objective of this Congress, which is to generate best practice benchmarks, in a sense, around what we understand as the values of an educating city. These 4 experiences, which we shall study and listen to, of our members. There's one who is on his way, but they'll be right up. These 4 experiences coincide with the central questions of an educating city. It is a city where, in a natural way, cooperation can take place, as a collaborative endeavor. An educating city should generate a spirit of cooperative or collaborative citizenship. Citizens who are willing to participate, are willing to do their bit with common purposes and common objectives concerning collective and personal well-being, and also feeling part and parcel of a community which is concerned about its members, which has empathy, which ensures it takes care of vulnerability, one of the universal dimensions of human beings, and cooperates to get things done. Active citizenship, who are proactive is a word, and these are the criteria which allows us to choose these 4 experiences, which integrate in the best possible way these values. But these 4 experiences which we have chosen integrate the main axis of the Congress: participation, inclusion, creativity, new ways of looking at cooperation, and this idea of a cooperative citizenship which creates an informal learning context which ensures that we can jointly find personal and collective welfare. This we shall kick off with a short video which will allow us to see in a holistic fashion what these 4 experiences are.
Un no és un diagnòstic, un no és un bipolar, un no...
You're not a schizophrenic, bipolar. You are a human being who maybe has some kind of condition, but then you have qualities. We must move to change things we don't like, and to ensure that this life, which is difficult, can be enjoyable. You don't have that many resources. I was alone, so I didn't know where to go, where to find refuge, whom to ask. I was like new out in the street. I didn't have a prototype, but for people who are homeless, it was their fault. But I see that's not the case. even more so now. If you fall, that's it, you fall. We're to see and be present at this gaze be one ensuring your dignity, not one of compassion. And then we should act.
Dou-te a vantagem, tu com tudo eu sem nada, que mesmo assim desarmada vou-te ensinar a perder. Sai de casa e vem comigo para a rua, vem, que essa vida que tens, por mais vidas que tu ganhas, é a tua que mais perde se não vais. Sai de casa e vem comigo para...
Au début, on avait monté un potager mobile sur un caddie.
Well, we have mobile vegetable garden to show everyone what we did and how, well, often we have many chances, or we don't have that many occasions to undertake projects to cooperate with others, and we've managed a project with deadlines to work with partners. It's wonderful. It shows you how to dialogue, to give and take.
J'étais assez curieux en fait de découvrir vraiment.
To discover in what our neighborhoods are like, to live there. I would say go for it, because it's an experience which is marvelous to be able to discover competence and qualities and talents, skills you didn't have. We're there to accompany these students to get the best out of themselves.
O Plano Plurianual Participativo é um processo que debate e decide em quais...
We will carry out investment in the next 4 years. All local governments should carry out a 4-year planning. Here in San Bernardo, this process takes into account the participation of people, pioneers in Brazil. These here we discuss the guidelines of the government strategic plan. We help prepare the plan of the city. And we look at PPA, this participative planning, looks at medium and long-term plans, which then lead to specific projects. Looking at the projects for the city, we channel green corridors and take decisions in this so-called PPA, and San Bernardo, thanks to that, is a much better city to live in.
José, vale. Ya estamos todos.
Okay, we shall continue now with the session. We have our guest, José Barreto, and these are the persons who are responsible for the presentation of the experiences. Monsieur Patrice Allais, who is Director General of Proximity and Social Cohesion, will present the CAPS experience, student flat which just shows solidarity. Nilsa Parentida from De Oliveira, Secretary of the Budget and Planning, Participative Planning, and we've seen that from San Bernardo do Campo. Monsieur Patrice Allais will talk about the experience of the city of Rennes. And then we have Diana Casillas, who is the person responsible for the San Juan de Déu, the Children's Hospital, dealing with vulnerability, the Barcelona program of Friendly School, and we have the head of the sports department who will present the experience of sports and elderly citizens from the city of Almada in Portugal, José Barreto. So we would like to ask all of you to tell us about their experiences, and I'll give the floor to Patrice Allais. Thank you. Good morning. Let me talk to you about an experience known as CAPS, a solidarity project for students. I come from the city of Rennes. It is an experience organized by an association in an NGO in different cities in France, AFEV, and which receive funds from Rennes and other local councils. Let me talk to you about Rennes. Is the west of France with about 200,000 inhabitants and 400,000 in its metropolitan area. There are a lot of students. We have 63,000 students, so 25% of the city's population are a student population. And AFEV is an association set up 20 years ago, which is a network of students who show solidarity, present in 65 cities in France. So, and today there are 6,700 students who carry out voluntary work, helping kids who have learning difficulties and who come from deprived families and deprived backgrounds. In Rennes, there are 300 students who are volunteers and who carry out these actions. So the project, the CAPS project, means Colocation et Projet Solidaire, a project of solidarity with students, and it involves 4 purposes. We wish to ensure that the students who wish to and who aspire to improve the urban environment, to ensure that students can find housing, which is often difficult to obtain because it's very expensive. And that's one objective. The other objective is social inclusion, to combine the 2 objectives, to link up with other groups and other communities in the city. So the idea is to propose to students to live in, so to have 4 students in the middle of poorer districts, sort of a placement for students in a flat, and allow them to pay reasonable rents, and in exchange they carry out volunteer work with inhabitants of their neighborhood. So it's a give and take. They get a low rent, but they participate and help in the needs of their neighborhood. How does the project flesh out? Well, there's a close partnership between the municipality, between donor bodies who provide the housing, and the AFEV association, which I mentioned. The apartments are furnished. They pay the guarantee, if you like, the deposit. There is a commitment to have low rents, and there's a bank where deposits are placed. And there is a pre-selection carried out based on their projects, on their motivation. They have to present a project. It's an important element of the project. And Employees Association actually help and advise the students, either people who are salaried staff of the association, or people who work in the social protection department of the council. In the film, you have seen students who explained their their views, their experiences. It's an experience which, in our view, is good, and it is present in 10 cities today. AFEV, A-F-E-V, was inspired initially from actions which existed in Louvain-la-Neuve, which is a university town in Belgium. I say just outside Brussels. It's very similar to Rennes. In Rennes, we thought this is a very interesting project, the one that took place in Louvain-la-Neuve, and we sort of attempted to replicate it. There are 9 flats. These flats, there are 23 students in this placement in different districts. And what happens? How does it work? Students throughout the year carry out certain activities, like in the film, sort of a small little vegetable garden, or they can teach people, if you like, sort of gardening skills. And at the beginning of the year, there is what we call neighborhood action, carrying out sort of like neighborhood activity. And there are quite a few students who benefit from this action, and an interesting dynamic is working out. The inhabitants, actually 40 of them in these neighborhoods are involved in this project. The basis of the commitment is 3 to 5 hours per week. So they have to spend 3 to 5 hours a week on these projects which they have chosen. There's a photograph of an action with this common vegetable garden. What are the lessons which can be drawn from this experience for the students who are placed in these flats? Are very pleased indeed. In fact, there are more. There's a waiting list, and there are more. There are not enough places. There are many students who come from outside Rennes, from smaller towns, and sometimes a bit lost in this large city when they're certainly in their freshers year, and they are very happy to be able to blend into a group. They feel more secure. An interesting point is that AFEV has negotiated with several universities in France the possibility that this commitment be sort of recognized as a module, as sort of credits, if you like, in terms of along the 3 years degree program. Students obtain competencies that are methodology, learn how to define skills they didn't have, which are very useful in the world of work and are recognized as such. We find that this placement idea allows to avoid isolation and a sense of being lost by students. Furthermore, the municipality and the providers have concluded or found that there is a much better neighborhood relationship where students are in these placements. People get to know the students will get to know their neighbors. People are more polite and friendly. And what is interesting as well is the neighborhood attitude to students. And the residents in these districts are also very happy with the idea. There's a colleague of mine here in the first line who is responsible for AFEV in the cities of Toulouse, Bordeaux, and Barcelona as well. So students here, thank you.
Ninfa Aparecida, São Bernardo do Campo.
Okay, and now I'll hand over to São Bernardo do Campo. Good morning. I shall speak of a relatively new pioneer project in São Bernardo do Campo. even though since 1998 we have federal funds, but the city management plan since 2009 has a strong sort of participatory element. People who debate and discuss it. San Bernardo del Campo has a considerable certain vulnerability. We are the metropolitan area of São Paulo, and it is one of the biggest states of the city. It has a fairly decent budget. It is a city with a budget which involves investment, similar to the GDP of the country. It has about 400 square kilometers. There are certain areas under environmental protection. It is a very large city, but with considerable problems. And in 2009, we felt that there were many issues which could not be overcome in the short term. The participatory budget is a powerful participation instrument, but it could not cover all the issues which we find in the field of education, and there were the lack of schools, there were problems with housing, and there were many vulnerable areas at risk, and in the area of health, we didn't have enough facilities to cover all the citizens. There were social issues in the city as well, and we mobilized all these challenges led to the Prefect Luis Marinho to attempt to find solutions. This PPA means that all managers have to carry out a participatory debate, a series of debates, and via the PPA they have to articulate in the short term and in the medium term to ensure that all the city is involved in the solution of the problems. And we have to articulate different budget headings, look at them, and look at how these can lead to specific actions. And the proposal of the mayor was to establish priorities. We do not have enough resources to cover all the problems in the short term. So the PPA was a proposal, and it was an instrument which is very interesting because we attempt to involve the whole population, all the sectors, from all the neighborhoods and also to the enterprises. This allowed us to establish a dialogue with many different bodies, universities, churches, business associations, and the population at large. The factors which we understand are so important to ensure that this process could be successful and useful, we work with a strategic public planning process. We look at the strategic objectives and the key issues so that we can flesh out a program of an action plan. We also have a joint involvement by the government, because in San Bernardo is, if you like, almost a brand image of our local government. We also have a series of monitoring and supervisory bodies. We have a planning body in all our various local government departments to ensure that implementation takes place. There is another element, another sort of independent monitoring body, because the mayor understands that a budget has to be borne out in terms of specific actions. There are different phases from mobilization up to monitoring of all the actions which are carried out, and this is on a parity basis. There is a council, the 50% of the community, and 50% has government representatives. And we look at all the actions which have been chosen by the population. And thanks to this participatory process, we have managed to create a more holistic overview of the needs. We have 21 plenaries in different neighborhoods. We have more than 3,000 people who participate. We have a number of local groups who discuss the guidelines, and a number of them, quite a large number of them, were approved in our plenary sessions. The PPO is not a budget; it is a plan, an action plan. But we look at objectives, targets, which are both financial and physical. So it allows us to have an overview of a given problem. We can put a figure to the solution in terms of financial resources and also where we can find the resources. And these 55 programs cost 600 million euros. And the most debated issues were questions that have to do with health, education, housing, infrastructure, urban security, which are the problems, the most pressing problems we have. The population, in fact, identified the problems which we had previously identified as city planners and city decision makers. Today we have a hospital which covers the needs of the population. We have emergency wards. We have managed to create green corridors, improve the quality of transport, of urban transport, and we also want to improve transport links to the city. In terms of housing, there are more than 5,000 units coming on stream shortly. In terms of education, we have unified education centers, and furthermore, the process of participation in San Bernardo is a process which requires political decisiveness, but it does create employment as well, and it does need to involve our population in the long term. Thank you. Diana Casillas from San Juan de Déu in Barcelona. Vulnerability and the Friendly School program. Well, first of all, good morning. I'd like to thank the organization and the scientific committee for having just our experience and having allowed us to share our programs with you. The Mayor Trias said nobody should lag behind, and that is our motto. The San Juan de Déu is a religious hospital order which goes back 500 years, and with significant presence in many countries in the world, and has a common objective to face up to vulnerability and social exclusion. Hospitality as a key element of our task, understood not just in strict terms of a hospital. We have a reference child hospital, which we're very, very proud of, but we do not refer just to that, but hospitality as a way of welcoming and treat our patients with maximum dignity and respect. Let's look at the experience I'd like to tell you about today, which we have named Breaking Vulnerability. It's experience of the so-called friendly school. a few years ago, users of our centres in the social services of Barcelona, which attends people who are homeless, and the hospital also decided that we had to carry outreach work with youth and explain a dramatic situation in Barcelona. One night, a woman who was a homeless woman who was sleeping within the area of an ATM was burnt alive by a group of youths, and this was a shock in the city and made us take a long, hard look and think that we needed to carry a lot of education work on vulnerability, invisibility of people who lived amongst us. So this was the inception of the Friendly School project, which is break stigma towards our target groups, basically homeless people, people who live in a situation of dependency, children in hospitals, and people who suffer mental health. The objective is to break stigma and promote mobilization of young people, to encourage solidarity and to create a sense of dignity and respect in the way we reached out to these people. That is very important. How do we do that? And first of all, to be sensitive, be familiar with the other person and that person's needs. So first of all, we go to secondary schools. It's a program aimed at young people from secondary schools. We're looking at the age group between 12 to 18 years of age. We then, first of all, we go to the secondary schools, volunteers or professionals, people who are very familiar with the environment, because they work there on a daily basis, and accompanied by someone who either is or has gone through that experience and can bear witness and be listened to. This linkage between a more rational approach given by the volunteer or the professional who can talk about circumstances. If we're talking about the homeless people, explain why people become homeless, give a few statistics. It's interesting to combine that with a more personal view, which is the personal experience of the person who bears witness. And we have seen that is the perfect mix to be able to actually reach these young people. In a second stage, we suggest to these young people they should actually get up and act and mobilize. This methodology is one we're happy with. We attempt to find activities which users and students can do together and carry out together. With what purpose? That when young people or students learn and bear out their attitudes, their values, they also, if you like, turn it into practical value added. They carry out tasks which are very useful. And we always say that we're not interested in the final result, but in how we get there. It's the path that's followed which is important. And this highlights also the values we wish to transmit. Two examples, just to give an idea of the kind of projects we propose. Last year, a school, social integration school, signed an agreement to work with the city of Barcelona, and we decided that young people, users, and homeless people will go and decorate an apartment where homeless people could live in. So this establishes a series of bonds and allows us to, when you work together with a homeless person next to you, and then you establish sort of a relationship, bonds, and you find out about that person's private life, whether or not they have a child or whatever, and that allows us to break down all these stereotypes, and allows us to break down this attitude of stigma. Another project which we hope will blossom next year is Barcelona Magic Line, which is an event which started last year, and we hopefully we'll do it on a yearly basis. It's a long walk throughout Barcelona, non-competitive, by teams, And many schools in the city found one way to foster and breathe new life into their sense of community within the school. And this incorporates these young people into volunteer teams, which will have professionals, users. So again, we are generating education by human contact, if you like. What have we achieved after these 5 years? Well, I don't wish to enter into quantitative data, but let us attempt to take stock. We have more than 4,000 students. This is a plan which was born in Barcelona, but we have spread it out to other cities, Pamplona, Valencia, and Zaragoza, where there are also San Juan de Déu hospitals. But we need to break down stereotype and stigma. We'd like to reach 10,000 kids. Schools are very happy at this and view this program with great interest. They're welcome with open arms. Another qualitative indicator or metric is to encourage respect and respect the dignity of the human being. As a result of academic research from San Juan de Déu, we can scientifically prove that the young people who had participated in the program had a different attitude to, say, the mentally disabled community. We always accompany, we never go alone. And we have the help and assistance of a team from the University of Barcelona. And we have, if you like, an advisory body which indicates the main guidelines. At the beginning of the video, you've seen in the 365 experiences of the year, they're short videos which aim to be awareness building and break down stigma. As I'm running out of time, let me take up a phrase mentioned by Professor El Pozo on Thursday afternoon, that what is alive is the ideal educating tool. That is how we conceive this program. And the very name, heartbeat, something which heartbeat means there is life there. We want our program to beat 365 days a year, 7 around the clock, every single minute. Thank you.
José Barreto,
Almada. Good morning. And particular greetings and thanks to the colleagues and the chair. The project we're presenting today is called The Inclusive City and the Senior Population. And the idea is to bring integration to senior citizens in Almada. Almada stretches over 71 square kilometers. It's just about 4 kilometers from Lisbon by the river. It's part of Setúbal. And Almada has had big population growth since around the 1940s, when there were large internal migration flows that brought people from inland towards the city. People who were attracted by jobs, industry, and companies that were around there. Between 1945 and 1980, the population increased by around 500%. Until 1980, from 1980 till now, there's been another growth of 15%. And the population now stands at 174,000. Now, this major change, this big demographic change, has had significant cultural, social, and economic repercussions, and we had to respond to those. Almada devised a strategy, a local strategy, involving citizens. We focus on partnerships and participation, and to work with populations to avoid negative consequences. But we do have challenges. We have faced challenges, and we looked at this process as a challenge. The political concerns have also set out, which are also set out in the Educational Cities Charter, have looked at partnerships, particularly between various local institutions that tried to give a response to local areas where there were people who needed home care, to give them access, physical access to parts of the city, a promotion of health, and so on. And so several projects and sub-projects were set up to comprise this inclusion plan. And I'm just going to mention 5 of these. We have five different projects for various aspects related to elderly. The outcome of this was the project. There was a formal partnership created in 1991 with the university to make Almada a place where elderly people could exercise all of their rights. And this required intervention of local institutions as a link. The council has been really the link between all of these. And so they've tried to look to the more to the future, to do the strategic work behind all of it, to come up with this plan for the elderly with short and medium-term objectives. We have a health plan that was created in 1995. This is a yearly cycle program, and it's aimed at people who are aged over 65, local residents, and there are gyms, water therapy, walks, and so on. And this is done in conjunction with 11 district boards. They're all involved. There are also 16 sports associations and so on. And the aim is to raise awareness, promote and facilitate access to sports and physical exercise for the elderly. Another project, a One Word, One Breath, which focuses on volunteering. And it's also part of collaboration of over 10 different spheres in the council. It started off in 2009. And the aim here is to work with people who are living alone. These people were identified, and then a group of volunteers was set up. People were trained. Most of the volunteers are teachers, also university students. I'll come back to them in a minute. So volunteers go to people's houses, people who live alone. They might chat to them, read them a book, or help take them to the hairdressers or whatever. Take them to the cemetery, for example, when they need to visit there. So just to spend time with them, talking and listening. The Flexus project was set up in 2010. Almada Council started running the project at that time, in the old quarters, the historical center of Almada, there have been 2,000 of these kind of trams on the streets. And you just have to flag them down. Tourists can catch them, for example. It's very easy, and the tram just stops right there where the person flags it down. So this gives better access to transport, and particularly helps older people get around more easily if they need to go to public services, health services, community centres, and so on and so forth. Now, universities, senior universities, we have 4 of these in Almada. And these are universities attended exclusively by the elderly. They have talks, debates, visits, and so on and so forth. And as I say, they're aimed at elderly people. And the idea is to give them a better quality of life. I just have 1 minute left. Assessment indicators for these projects. Mainly, these are to do with the strategy, the initiative that we've aimed at elderly people, and they come. The results have been borne out in satisfaction surveys. Most of the goals that we set out to achieve have been achieved. Quality of life has increased. Life expectancy even has increased. We know our elderly population more. Their autonomy has gone up. Situations of domestic violence have been identified and prevented. We've led to active aging, and we've improved the perception of aging also. Elderly people actually have taken more of an active role in social processes. They've been supported at the council. For example, transport is facilitated, home care also. There were 2,300 registrations in the council before, 2,500 people in the universities. The One Word, One Breath attends more than 30 people in 2013. The Flexibus ensured 21 trips. So all of these figures show that we have achieved our goals. I am coming to an end now. But we also have systematic assessment that we carry out with the people involved in the project to ensure continuity. We carry out detection. We ensure viability and continuity of resources, be them technical, economical, and so on. For us, inclusion is a citizen participation process. It's a response to needs that we have in our community. And so in Almada, we're really trying to give a comprehensive response to this, and in this case, by focusing on the elderly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sticking to your time. Very briefly, we don't have much time left. We just have a few minutes. But these beacons for inclusion that we've heard about probably have darker and lighter areas as they turn, just like real lighthouses or beacons. I'd like you to tell us what have the biggest issues been, what have the weaknesses or the biggest problems that you've had in getting to the point where you are now. Obviously, all of these processes require a lot of work, a lot of people involved, but sometimes with hindsight, you can see what the biggest difficulty was. So I'd like to for you to tell us a little bit about that, these difficulties that you could perhaps highlight. Patrice. I'm perhaps not best placed to answer that question, but I can say in terms of difficulties, it's really about finding enough funding to continue the projects, to put them into action more quickly. Sometimes people in charge of the projects have struggled to get finances to understand how much they need. We've had these 45,000 euros that I mentioned earlier. And sometimes it's difficult for them to understand that all of the invisible work that goes on behind it. So it doesn't just happen. You can't just leave students on their own after the project has been set up. They have to continue supporting them. And so there's this invisible work that goes on. And for people providing the financing, sometimes it's difficult for them to realize all of that. Thank you very much. Yes, there have been difficulties, certainly, along the way. One of those has been identifying, pinpointing problems, and then seeing if we actually find the definitive solution. Obviously, big projects are split into different phases often. And sometimes there are immediate needs in a population, and there's also the medium and long-term view. Often we think that we have to solve things right here, right now, but of course with larger issues that's not possible. And also the training, the educational process is sometimes difficult. Sometimes we don't have a shared vision. We might have a piecemeal vision of an issue, and that requires a different approach. Sometimes people are just thinking of their own area, just the local sphere, but really it's about working all together, local government, national government, and looking at the whole rather than just the parts. Obviously, local government has sometimes a fragmented vision, and this generates tension. And the same goes for people as well. They're not seeing the wider issue. Also, control and monitoring of processes and programs, that has been a point of tension for us. The process itself allows us to think about and consider and plan the city with this PPA, with its structures, times, and scales. It also structures resources internationally. It links up different spheres: health, education, mobility, so on and so forth. But also the time frames, short, medium, and long term, are the major challenges for us. And what we've really got right, though, is this comprehensive approach to everything. Yes, I agree with what the points that have been made. Sometimes these processes are slow and it's difficult to see results immediately. We're seeking social change, in our case for young people. Sometimes it's difficult to measure that with indicators to really see if we're on the right track. That's one of the challenges we have faced in raising awareness and in education, broadly speaking. Also, in our case, I talked about the learning service projects that we do at the hospital and in conjunction with schools. One of the difficulties has been to create projects that were useful for both parties, so that the institutional and the school needs fitted together. They understood each other's roles. That's all taken quite a long time, and it's been a learning curve for all of us. And sometimes we've had to start from scratch again. Another difficulty, something we've had from the outset of the project, is that we started to work with state-subsidized private schools and religious schools. Then we moved into secular schools, but we've really had big difficulties in getting into public schools. It's one of the objectives we set. It's one of the difficulties we've really had, though, because we think there's a lot of work to do in public schools, and it's something we've really kept chipping away at to try and achieve, to ensure that we are covering all young people. For us, it's very important, though, that we're not alone in this process, and I want to stress that. I perhaps didn't have time to talk about it before, and I don't just want to talk about the negative aspects here. We have a whole team, many of them working on the ground in schools, in institutions. We have people working in social, education spheres, the University of Barcelona, which was very involved and has been excellent right from the start. So I think that is what has allowed us to get so far and will continue to take us further, even though it's slow sometimes. Yes, what we often say in Almada, in Portugal, is that we don't have any problems. We look at problems, though, as challenges rather than difficulties. If you look at a marathon of 43 kilometers, if you look at it as a problem, you don't do the marathon. But if you look at it as a challenge, you do the marathon, you run it, you do it, and you achieve it, your objectives. So we look at the work that we carry out as a big challenge. And it's really an everyday challenge to work with the elderly population on a day-to-day basis. And actually, we face the big challenge of creating and providing the right good living conditions for these people. And it's vital for us. It's a vital matter. The fact, for us, it's easy just to stand up from this chair. But for an elderly person, that might be the difference between being independent and being dependent. If I need somebody to help me stand up on my feet, then it's a problem. So it's not just about looking at it from our perspective, from living a longer life. It has to be living with quality. And that's a challenge. And that's something that we have to address and respond to for the elderly population, to tackle the challenges that we have and make sure that we do our work in partnership. That's the only way that we will be able to attain our goals. So it's to give this systematic response. And be able to create conditions for these people that allow them to do a range of activities, to live a full life. And also something I didn't mention earlier, it's worth mentioning here. The major generality of the people involved in these projects it doesn't depend on a financing aspect. The fact we have very limited budgets here for these projects. But we make sure that not one elderly citizen is deprived of access to these projects, to these services. We, for financial reasons, so doesn't depend on that. Thank you very much, then. Thank you for keeping to your time. I'd just like to give a very brief recap. It's a shame that we can't go on because I have other questions that I wanted to ask you, but it's been very interesting so far. I think we all agree that all of these issues are very much intertwined. And the day-to-day lives of these people who are actively involved in these experiences, when we heard earlier, it's about learning, you learn through doing, it's what's alive. It's really these practical experiences that educate citizens that really have the impact. So it's about engagement with them, commitment, accepting vulnerability as a human characteristic. All of these realities are what impart values to our citizens through practice. So very much the emphasis on the actual practice rather than the ultimate aim of these projects. And something else you've all agreed on is that these practices require a lot of information. People have to be told regularly what we're doing, what the point of it is, what the goals are, and that has to be systematic. We have to also have a very rigorous culture of assessment and information of what's going on, of what the challenges are. The whole thing has to be very transparent. It's not just about dedicating time to the experience itself, but about disseminating it. And this is sometimes where we perhaps a point that we overlook sometimes, and that can have a negative impact on the success of the project. These are very powerful actions, and they're large scale, I would say, but actually they all come from micro improvements. And I think it's these micro improvements that will end up making change. It's not necessarily just about starting with a huge sphere, a huge goal. Micro improvements, then, is where it all starts. And also, it has to be networked. All stakeholders have to be engaged. They have to be there, otherwise the project's not possible. So this collaborative citizen, this networked citizenship, I think, again, is one of the fundamental prerequisites to these works as educating cities. I can't go on any longer. I'm afraid we're out of time. I'd like to just thank you very sincerely for the presentations you've given, and also the people behind all of these. We've heard over 60 presentations over the last couple of days. We've heard 4 particularly here, which are excellent, and I think can all be beacons, lighthouses shining the way forward. Thank you very much.
Moltes gràcies, gràcies a tots per...
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing these real beacons for inclusion for us. So, we will be hearing now the other experiences in the different rooms. And then there's the speaker's corner and the coffee break. And during the coffee break, I imagine you all got this little badge, this pin that you were given yesterday in the dinner. It's very important. It celebrates the 20th anniversary of the association. And it was made by a young creator with recycled material. It's excellent. It's very original. It's very innovative. And I do encourage you all to wear it. Thank you. See you in a while.